at price, they look at worth. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to global speaker, world-class business entrepreneur, life and business strategist, also the host of the #1 business podcast on iTunes. Think about that. Best-selling author and the fastest growing business personality in the history of social media. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Mr. Ed Mylett. How are you doing, Mr. Ed Mylett? How are you, sir?
Good, brother. Thank you for having me, Glenn. Excited to be with you. I need to record that and play that before every time I walk through the front door for my kids so they can figure this out.
That would be awesome, man. Right before you walk through the door every single time. Man, I'd be glad to record that for you, man.
I think I'm going to have you do it because they clearly don't get it.
Now, how old are they now? You have a boy and a girl? Is that what I saw?
I do. You've done great research. My son's 18. My daughter is 16. Yeah.
18 and 16. Awesome,
Yeah.
man. And I know I watched you on Impact Theory, and you were talking about, the importance of getting to your daughter's wedding and how having that result in mind is one of the things that helps you push through all of your, the 4 a.m.s and all the different things that you have to do. Why don't you share a little bit of that with the audience?
Well, boy, you really done your research. Yeah, well, I'm a big believer that if you can link big, compelling reasons to something, that that can override your insecurities, your weaknesses. People all the time, because I run a pretty busy schedule, say, hey, you must be this incredibly, disciplined person. I just have huge reasons and great routines. If you leave me to my own devices, I'm a pretty lazy guy, actually. I like TV. I don't have any opposition to pizza and Cheetos. So I had to, I had to build routines and habits and have big reasons. That's what's changed my life. And when I was very young, 30 years old, I had a heart issue. I went to see a doctor, and thank God he understood influence.
Right.
Even business people don't understand influence. A regular doctor, you go, they go, oh, you got this issue. Here's your medication. Take it and leave. Right. That's what a lot of business people do. Like, here's my presentation. Can I take your order?
Mm-hmm.
And the best at everything in life, best dads, best moms, best business people, they're great at influence.
Yeah, man.
And influence is getting leverage on people, getting reasons, right? And so I went and had this heart scan, and it's funny because you do the scan, then you take a break, then you come back. And so I, on the break, went and ate a burrito. That's a true story. And I came back in the lobby for the scan, and the doctor knew me, but he pretended he didn't. So he walks into the lobby, and there's like me and one other person in the lobby. He goes, I'm looking for Edward Mylett. And I go, I'm Edward Mylett, which he knew, right? But I didn't know he knew Tom. And he goes, oh. And he goes, huh, can't believe those arteries are in that young of a body.
Ooh.
He goes, why don't you come on back, son? I went, whoa, what the heck? And then when we sit down, rather than just get into it, hey, you got a blockage or a clogging, he's like, hey, let me ask you a question. You married? I said, yeah. I said, I met my wife in kindergarten. He goes, you're kidding me. That's amazing. He goes, just curious. How long you known her for? I said, 35 years. He says, that's great. He goes, are you cool for the next 35 years that there's another man living in your house with her every morning for breakfast? I went, what? And then he says, your son, I heard you got a little boy. I said, yeah. He goes, hey, you're okay if another man's there on his graduation. Both those got me. But then he says, do you have any other children? I said, I have a little baby girl. And he says, you're okay if another man walks her down the aisle on her wedding day then, huh? And I went, what the F is in that scan, dude? Right? Like, you better tell me. And he's like, be very clear, son. If you don't change what you're doing, some other man's going to be in your mansion with your wife. Somebody else is going to be there on your son's graduation. And another man is walking your daughter down the aisle on her wedding day. You will be long gone.
Wow.
But if you listen to what I tell you, you do the medication, the nutrition, the working out, you can be there for Bella's wedding day. And I went, give it to me.
Right.
And since that day, when it's 4:30, not every day, but some days I'm like, I do not want to get up, especially when I'm on the road. Bella's wedding, Bella's wedding, Bella's wedding. He ingrained that into my spirit. He got that leverage on me. And then I learned something from that. I'm like, well, what if I could get that type of leverage to get up and make my contacts in business? That type of leverage to do anything in my life. If I could have a great routine with that type of reason and leverage, I could accomplish a lot of different things. And so people even that are listening to this or watching it, you have to ask yourself that question, like, what's your big reason? What's the leverage you get? What's that thing that's so huge, it overrides your fatigue, your proclivities for weakness, your laziness, right? What is that thing that's so big? And then what routines have you built in so that it's habitual, so that it's every day you do it, almost like brushing your teeth? I go to the gym, right? And so that's the story of Bella's wedding for sure. And even when we say now, you can tell my state changes. It affects me.
Yeah.
It affects my spirit. So I think about it very regularly for 18 years now.
That's beautiful, man. And I love how you pointed out that the doctor knew something about influence, right?
Yes.
He knew how to get that leverage on you, how to really hit those key, points.
Think about the people that you know in the car business. The best people, they understand how to get people to have big reasons to make decisions.
No
the
doubt.
Best school teachers. My kids' best school teachers weren't just the best at teaching them how to add and subtract. They was the ones that gave them the biggest reasons to want to do well in school, want to do their homework, want to be a better person. Reasons are huge in life.
Yeah,
they're
man.
huge.
Yeah.
And so now I will say this, the higher you climb in life, the more you do well financially. If some of the folks listening are doing better than they used to do, it's even more incumbent upon you to find bigger reasons. That's why most people's careers stall out. You have huge reasons when you're broke.
Mm-hmm.
You have huge reasons when you're starving. Just to exist, you got to sell something, right? But then what happens when you make six figures? For the average person, their reasons shrink. Then they get to multiple six figures, their reasons shrink. They get to $1 million a year. Man, I got everything. I don't have any reasons anymore.
Right.
So the key at my age, at 48, to continue to work in a 17, 18-hour day and want to do something great, I got to find new and bigger reasons. You look at Tom Brady's going to go play a couple more years of football. Why is he playing? Because he still has a chip on his shoulder because he was a 6th-round draft pick.
Right.
He's got huge reasons.
Right.
That's what's the difference. He's not a better thrower of the football, but those huge reasons get him to prepare better than most everybody else. He's not a better athlete than Aaron Rodgers.
Sure.
Not even close. He hasn't even played on better teams. I think he has bigger reasons than Aaron Rodgers does, than Brett Favre did. I think that's why. And that's caused him to get better. Michael Jordan used to say, man, what gets Jordan with 5 rings up to play in Milwaukee on a Tuesday night? Because most NBA guys are cool. Jordan goes, hey, I got big reasons. That's a literal sentence. He said, there's some kid who's 8 years old in Milwaukee. That'll be the one time he'll ever see me play in his life in person.
Right.
I owe it to him to play all out those nights. He found reasons to elevate when other people couldn't. And that's true in every area of our life.
Wow, man, that's super powerful. It's super strong. It's the story, right? It's the story that we tell ourselves, the story that we're being told along the way that propels us. And in regards to like stories, the first time I came across you, Ed, you were on the stage, 10X Growth Con. I'm like, I mean, you even walked out just looking money, right? I'm like, this guy's got something going on. I got to pay attention to what he has to say. And you told an incredible story. You told your rise and all the the challenges that you had along the way. And there was a very impactful part of your story that had the tears pouring down my face, which is when you spoke of your belief that when we get to heaven, that standing next to God himself is going to be the best version, the version of us that God destined us to be. And your hope is that you recognize that person. And bro, you had me bawling. Here I am, grown man, 10X Growth Con. And I wasn't the only one. We're all bawling in this place. So I had a question that I wanted to ask you. Obviously, this idea, this concept of that being what it looks like, it came to you at some point in your life. So my question was, who were you when that first idea first came into your mind? Who were you at that point, and how did that change you going forward?
Good question. I appreciate you saying that about the story too, because that's the ultimate reason. The ultimate reason for me is to become the man that the Lord made me to be. And if you're a Christian, doesn't matter. I'm not here to preach, but Christians, we believe God made us in his image and likeness, and he knew us before we were here, right? So I believe at the end, I want him to go, good, well done, good and faithful servant. But I have this hallucination. He's going to introduce me to that dude he thought I was going to be, that he knew I was capable of being.
Right.
Heaven to me is we meet each other. We're identical twins. I had the moments, the experiences, the contribution, the things with my family, the self-worth, the difference I was capable of making. I'm an identical twin. Hell is you meet that person, you're complete strangers. Right. So it kind of is my governor of the decisions that I make. Prior to feeling that way, I would say that I was a guy who was a little bit lost without a compass. I was just a dude who went from achievement to achievement. I never allowed myself to enjoy any of those moments. I think I still have, but everyone has to fight this. But I was a guy with a big ego.
Sure.
Thought it was all about me. And the more I started to dedicate to myself to the lives of other people, I went, whoa, that one feels like home to me. This one actually warms my spirit. This one fills me up. You know, just winning awards or making money. And by the way, I want everybody to win awards, make money. If you want a private, I'm looking at the replica of my jet right over my laptop talking. I'm thrilled I own that thing, right? But it doesn't fill me up. Sure. And I hate saying that because it's so corny, but I love that plane. I'm very proud of what it took to get that. But I'm much more proud, honestly, to think that this conversation today, one human being goes, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. And two men just sharing their heart and their stories affect another life. That's pretty cool, right? Man. And to think that for whatever reason, God's put me in this position where I can walk on those stages and I can do a show like this. Very grateful for that. I was not a grateful person prior to that discovery. I was just a dude plodding through life, having some successes, but I wasn't very happy. I certainly wasn't fulfilled. I had a big ego. I wasn't very grateful. Now, because I remember what it's like when I walk in a room and nobody knew me. I remember what it's like no one wanted to put me on a stage. No one cared what I had to say. I'm pretty damn grateful. In fact, I thought about this today. It's one of a rare day. I'm doing 4 shows today. Very rare for me to do that. You know, when you get up in the morning, sometimes you're like, whew, you look at your day ahead, you're like, wow. And I've got other meetings too. Sure. And then I thought, hey, man, there's a time when no one wanted to hear it from you. How fortunate you are that these people would love to actually potentially hear from. Not everybody. Some people already clicked off. They're like, this guy's a dope. But just that there's one person potentially that whose life you might make. I'm a speck of sand in the beach of their life. That's super cool. So that's probably the biggest shift in me.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So it gave you that direction, right? It became, like you said, you were lost, you know, a man without a compass. And I feel that.
That's the word. Glenn, that's the word. It's my compass. Yeah. Perfect.
I feel that, and I resonate, you know, with that. I know that you and I have kind of just met, but I had that side. I had that I was a performer. I could always pull it off. I could generate cash. I could make money, but I had no compass. I had no direction for a big part of my life. So, you know, that's just, I resonate with that. And there are a lot of things about you that I've resonated with. Obviously, I have a morning show, #Rise and Grind, and I've been going live at 5:30 a.m. every Monday through Friday for the last 2 years.
Wow.
And it's, you know, it's grown and it's become a thing. And I created this morning routine, these 5 simple steps to an extraordinary life. And then I started following you, listening yours, and our routines and synergies were so connected. Wake up, don't touch your phone first thing in the morning, don't hit the snooze button, gratitude, goals, take care of yourself physically, right? All of those things. And I know it sounds a little bit hokey on the gratitude thing, but you just pointed it out again, man. Just being grateful for the opportunities that we do have is really, that's the compass, right? Like,
yeah, I was just amazing. God's so good, bro. It's just confirmation of something for me that you just said. I can't tell you who it was because it's a private conversation, but I can tell you what the conversation was about. About 2 hours ago, I was driving back to come here, talking to a very, very, very successful person who you would know, a high-profile person. And he's just going, last couple of days, we've had some conversations. And he called me back this morning. He goes, man, I talked a lot. Like, tell me what's wrong with me. I said, there's nothing wrong with you, bro. But I said, you have no gratitude. I love you. Somebody's shooting straight. You have no gratitude. You have one of the most incredible lives of all time, man. Of all time. You're alive today. You didn't go to chemo today, did you? You in any chemotherapy I don't know about? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, you're healthy.
Right.
You got a great living. You got a wife who loves you. You're one of the most, you got unbelievable cars. You're the most ungrateful dude. And if you don't change that, no matter what new stuff you go get, man, you're going to keep being this dude who's not grateful for any of it. Eventually, you're going to go through what they call burnout. That you just finally conclude doing this does not make me happy. So for me, my pathway out of darkness is always my faith. But the word I always get out of my darkness is really being grateful. Kobe Bryant, I got to know Kobe the last couple of years. Not best friends, but our daughters play volleyball together. Okay. I was with Kobe 6 days before he was killed for 12 hours. We sat next to each other watching our daughters play volleyball. And it's amazing how things happen in your life. I've been around him a lot. We've talked a lot. I didn't know Kobe when he played. I've known Kobe post his career.
Sure.
And I know that when he played, he had issues and all this stuff. But I'm telling you, he grew into an incredibly good father, like exceptional. And we're one of the only two dads who stayed all 12 hours that day. It's funny. And at the end of the day, Glenn, at the end of the term, it was 10 p.m. at night. We got there at 10 a.m. And for some reason, I was at the end of the court with my daughter, and I watched Kobe at the other end of the court, man. He had his little baby in his left arm.
Right.
And he was rubbing his daughter's back with his right arm.
Right.
And I watched it, and I went, do I hug Bella enough? I tell my daughter I love her all the time, but he's so physically affectionate with his daughters. And I'm like, I need to touch and hug her more. Like I did when she was 7 and 8. I don't hug her enough, right? And I learned this lesson watching Kobe Bryant. I didn't learn anything about shooting a jump shot.
Right.
I'm a 5'10" and a half white dude with a probably 9-inch vertical, right? Like I'm not doing basketball, right?
Right.
But I learned about being a father from him. Let me tell you something that's profound, man. For some reason that day, I swear to you, man, on anything, I watched Kobe walk out of the gym that day with his arm around his girl. I literally, I had black sweats on, Adidas black sweats, black sweatshirt, Mamba gear, and I watched him walk out into the parking lot from his car. I stopped and watched him for some reason, and I just keep thinking to myself, what if someone whispered to him when he was walking out that door, you have 7 days left to live. When he got in his car, you have 7 more days. That next Monday morning when he woke up, 6 days left. That Friday, 2 days left. Right? Time is precious, man. And I'm grateful that I have the time here. I'm grateful I'm breathing today.
Yeah.
You can really find things to be grateful about when you stop being so self-centered and so focused on you. You get out of your ego, you'll find all kinds of things. I'm grateful. Man, I get to hug my daughter.
Right.
I get to hug. Kobe doesn't get to hug. That little 7-month-old that was in his arms, I believe she's 7 months. He has no more time with her.
Right.
But whatever your conditions are, you may not be a global icon, one of the 3 best basketball players probably of all time. You get to hug your kids today.
Wow.
You know, you got another shot. You got another opportunity in your life to do something great. Man, you ought to be grateful for that. I don't care how broke you are, what's not in your bank account, what you haven't achieved, whatever you're ashamed of, whatever mistakes you've made, whatever your transgressions and sins are. I have a bundle of them.
Sure.
I'm grateful that I'm saved by Jesus Christ, number one. And number two, I got another day here to do something great with my life.
Right.
And so do you. And so let's not kid ourselves. We have a lot to be grateful for. Whole lot more than a hunk of steel called a jet that I fly around in. Although that's cool and you should go get it.
Sure, man.
Right? So.
Sure. Wow, Ed, man, that's that's powerful, man. And you know, I have a son, Joel Bryant. His middle name is, you know, after Kobe.
Get out of town. Are you serious?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, man. You know, we graduated high school same year, Kobe and I. So he was always just kind of an icon of mine. You know, watching his life, and you know, 2 things that you mentioned there. The one, the way that Kobe did go down. I love how he went. Like, I don't love that his daughter's life was cut short.
Of course not.
But Kobe Bryant went down with his family. Like, he went down being a good dad, right?
Bro,
like,
every time somebody dies, everybody comes up with all these good stories about him. I'm telling you that before that happened, I would tell people this man's a remarkable father.
Right.
You know, and he's also a testimony. Look, I have a lot of athlete friends. Many have been on my show. Many I coach privately. I'm not enamored with that.
Sure.
I was a D1 college athlete. I was a decent athlete. I'm going to tell you something. I admired him because he became a better human as he got older.
He sure did.
He became a better person
as
he got older. And that's what all of us, you know, have an opportunity to do. Like, I'm telling you, man, I'm really hurting over it still. I haven't known him that long, but I had a chance, as you can hear in my voice, I had a chance to know him. And he inspired me for sure. And it's ironic that I had Darryl Strawberry on my show last week, one of the greatest baseball players of all time.
Right. Met.
Become a dear friend of mine. We talked honestly in a 55-minute interview. I'm not kidding you. I think we spent 40 seconds on baseball.
Right.
The rest was about his faith and his turnaround. I'm in love with the man.
Sure.
You know, he's a good man. He's a better man right now than he was 10 years ago, than he was 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And all have that opportunity. And that's kind of what I mean, is that getting you closer to that ultimate version of you or further away.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant was the best possible version of himself at that stage of his life. Now, could he have done more and accomplished more?
Sure,
Certainly.
sure.
But that's a dude who was moving closer to the man he was born to be. I can tell you that.
And that's incredible, man, and how much respect we can have for him for that. And that's why I think that the country like came together, right? Typically somebody passes away and you know people pick sides, but with Kobe he was able to unite a divided country, a clearly divided country. He was able to unite us in so many ways.
You're so true. You're so articulate, Glenn, and you know, and a very polarizing person when he was alive.
That's right. Yep.
It's funny, in death he unified us, but when he was alive, there's a lot of polarization about Kobe.
No doubt.
He did this when he was younger. He was a ball hog. You know, he didn't play well with teammates.
Right. Right.
Something, you know, that she's a testimony to what living well can really do. And he just led a big life, and I think it's remarkable that you middle named your son after him.
Yeah, man.
And one thing you have, I want to give you a compliment that I really like about you, that Kobe also embodied, that I admire. I look for in my male friends. Actually, I look for them in my friends. I love really strong dudes with a lot of humility. I love men that are really confident men, but somehow combine that with humility. You have that. It's very obvious. You're a confident man. You've been successful. You know what you're doing. Tons of humility, though. It exudes out of you.
Thank you, Ed.
I bet you Kobe didn't have that when he was young. I'm just betting that the confidence was there, but the humility came later in life.
Sure.
And I can tell you that was a strong man who had a great deal of humility and wanted to get better and wanted to learn and was inquisitive and curious about life, curious about the issues that you and I are talking about. And I enjoyed my conversations with him about these topics a lot.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love how he went from basketball to doing the podcast, the Punies, and then from there, the love of basketball and just being able to be creative and constantly learn and grow.
Yeah.
When it comes to Ed Mylett, from what I understand, we kind of have two sides. We have the super business successful Ed that was very private. Mm-hmm. And then there was the Tony Robbins moment that you kind of shared. And Tony was like, you got to get out here a little bit more. And now we have the opposite. We have, the fastest growing business person in the history of social media. So I wanted to ask you today, since you made that shift, is there anything that you miss or regret from coming out kind of from behind the scenes where you were to where you are now?
Great question. No one's ever asked me that. Yes, there are several things. And I'd warn everybody to be careful of these things. I enjoyed my privacy. Mm-hmm. So I love if I'm out in public and someone appreciates or thanks me or somehow we've had a connection. I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But for my family, there's a price for that on not being private anymore. Sure. Right? You have to be careful as you step into any of you that are going to become prominent on social media or traditional media, or just you're going to become more of a public person. You have to be careful. I wish someone at the beginning said, be more careful of the impact it has on your family, on the time you have with them, on you being present with them. I could have done a better job earlier on of navigating the price my family paid short term for the long term difference we're making as a family.
Gotcha.
So I am somewhat regretful that I wasn't more conscious of what it's doing to my children too, which net is a positive, but there's bumps in it. There's any of you that have started anything new, you started a new business that are listening to this, there's a price and a consequence that you better be really cognizant that you're still present when you're with your kids or your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend. I wasn't as cognizant of that in the beginning as I could be, but I'll just tell you, when you step into your calling and you step into what is your home, the upside dwarfs the downside. To say there's no downside isn't true.
Sure.
The only probably negative, if there's anything, is the reason I did pretty well when I got into this space was I had 45 years of real world, every single day experience, building, selling companies, building people, developing leaders. And the more David Goggins and I were just talking about this, the more you begin to talk about your lessons, to some extent, you're not making new ones. And so there has to be a balance that as you become the teacher, that you're also still real world doing those things every day, which I think I do. But you have to be careful about the real world breakthroughs and the discoveries I've made and the way I explain things were all born out of experience. I need to make sure that I don't just become a talker and not someone still having those experiences and climbing to those new levels.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I'm glad you touched on both sides of that, like the impact that it has on the family. You know, from what I've read, and again, you know, we just met, so I won't pretend like I know you, but from what I've read, you know, you've been with your wife for over 25 years, like married wise, right? And then plus, you know, initial time with that. And so obviously your family's always been, you know, the root and really, really important to you as you've gone through all of these different seasons and these different changes. And I want to get back to the business side here in just a second, but let's talk about your wife real quick. As you've gone through all of these different seasons and these changes, you've been able to keep this really massively strong. Clearly, you guys are in love with each other. You see the pictures, you see all of that. Like, what are maybe just a couple of the keys of how you kept your relationship strong through all of this? And then I want to go back to the business side real quick.
Okay, great questions. We went when I was 5 and she was 4. We dated since high school. Had a couple breakups in the middle, but that's a long relationship. You're talking about 40-something years, right?
Right.
So we definitely know each other for sure. I'll give you things nobody ever tells you. So number one, she believes in me. She has not always believed in the businesses. People say, how do I get my spouse to support the business I'm doing? She didn't always support all the business I did. She supported me. She believed in me. That's huge for my self-esteem to know she believes in me is monstrous, man. Monstrous for me. We're super opposites. I'm an A driver, crazy man.
Yep.
She could care less. She could care less about where we live.
Right.
She doesn't have a bunch of fancy clothes. There's people come over her house. We've had women literally come over her house and go, hey, I was in your closet. I'm really disappointed. I mean, literally, one, you shouldn't be in our closet.
Right. Get out of the closet.
And two, like, what are you doing in my bedroom? But number two, they're like, you don't have any expensive clothes. She's like, I just don't care. Right.
Sure.
And so we're super opposites. If she had it her way, we'd be living in a cabin in the middle of the mountains somewhere and just stay in bed all day long. Right.
Yeah.
So we're opposite. So that part's good because we're not competing with each other. I'll give you something that's made our relationship work that no one ever talks about. People are like, you know, you got to trust each other. You got to have honesty. Of course you do. You got to be best friends. Yeah. I don't want to live with my best friend. Like, I want to live with my wife. And so she is my best friend, but here's the rub. No one says this for relationships. You got to stay attracted to each other physically.
Yeah, man.
Like, listen, that's real talk. Now, when I was a young dude, I'll tell you really quick. By the time her and I dated, her dad had a first wife who died of cancer, so he was much older. I'm not just about sex. I'm just about physical intimacy.
Yeah, sure.
In a relationship through the end of it. So we're intimate, right? Like, I watch too many of my friends. You're about not touching each other. They don't do that. And then there's no attraction. And then you're just living with your buddy.
Right.
Well, I got a bunch of buddies.
Yeah, roommates.
Right? And that's what happens to relationships. No one says, you better stay intimate. And so when we were dating, I'll give you the last example of it. When we dated, when I'd go to her house, I actually own this house now that her mom lives in, but when I would go pick her up for a date, you could see into their living room from the front door. So when you knock on the front door, you could look into the living room. Real simple, like lower middle class house. And I'm not exaggerating, Glenn, maybe over 100 times I would knock on that door for the date. And if I looked in their living roam, her mom and dad were in there slow dancing with the lights down and beyond.
That's
I don't think they were, after it every night, it's
right.
But they had a romance. And so that was a lot to live up to, marrying into that, because she saw this,
sure.
Right? Like all her life. And we've I'm not telling you we slow dance in the living room every night. We don't. Right. But there's an acknowledgement of both of us that we need to keep this where there's some intimacy, touching each other regularly. Man. People don't talk about that in relationships enough.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think not enough people talk about it. It's a huge ordeal. We actually spoke a little bit on my show this morning, and I did see you had dropped a thing on YouTube on it that I watched a little bit earlier today. But on my show this morning, we talked about frequency plus proximity equals affinity.
Ooh.
And what we've done here, what we've done here in this country with phones and so on and so forth is we're decreasing, and with our busy schedules, we're decreasing the frequency, right? Like wife and husband just kind of exchange the kids and they go do their own thing. So we've decreased frequency. We're decreasing proximity because we're letting so many other things get in between us, like this phone that gets right in between our faces, or, children work, so whatever. So obviously that decreases affinity, right?
Brother,
So
I'm writing it down right now. I just stole that from you, just so you know. I don't like when people steal my stuff and don't tell me, but I'm using that. That's too good.
Yeah,
That's
man. And I actually got that out of a book called The Like Switch that was written, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that. Like frequency plus proximity equals affinity, as long as there's a positive feeling, right? It doesn't work if it's negative. If I get around you often and we're in close proximity and you drive me nuts, well, then that's not going to increase the affinity.
Yeah.
But as long as there's some positive reward, that comes with it, it just increases that affinity, and that's it's strong and it's powerful. So thank you for sharing that, with your wife. I love that you've been able to carry all of this success, that you do and do the things you do and still stick to the coveted marriage that society now says is not, as coveted as it should be. So, but we're not going to go down that path. So going back to the business side real quick.
Yeah.
There's also, I know there was the private Ed Mylett, now there's the public Ed Mylett. But from what I understand, there was also a different business side of Ed Mylett, maybe in the earlier years. And, we're just now, we're getting to know each other. So, but from what I heard, you maybe were like quite the ball buster earlier in business, and maybe even outright like mean, maybe to some of your people.
Excuse my language, but I could be a dick once in a while. Yeah. I know it's a terrible thing to admit to, but I made a mistake that, see, I'm the type of dude, I already know you are too. Like, just tell me what to do, man. You don't need to sugarcoat anything. Like, give it to me, right? I like dudes like that. I like people like that. I've grown up to learn some people need some sugar.
Sure.
I didn't need sugar.
Right.
But most people need a little sugar with the news. And so I was too hard on people. And the mistake I made was this. And I'm really regretful that I didn't have more maturity. With some of your greatest strengths the Lord gives you can be some of your great weaknesses. He gave me a pretty good strength of communication, to talk. Gave me a pretty good voice. Words don't come that difficult to me. That is a gift. On the other side, I can use that to really hurt people in a way that not everybody can. Yeah. I used words, and the spoken word in particular, to hurt people too often. And I think the reason I did that, here's the mistake. I was always setting a standard for somebody, which I think you should set a standard for yourself and for your organization. But the best leaders get people to set the standard themselves. And I never did that. And so I never took the time to get them to set a standard. I was always demanding things from people. I was like a hammer, always hammering people. And I just learned over time, like, why don't you find out what their gifts are, their strengths are that may be different than yours. Maybe their gift is their patience, dummy, right? Maybe their gift is their nurturing ability. Maybe their gift is they make people feel comfortable. Maybe their gift is their trustworthiness. Maybe their gift isn't that they're a hammer like you. And then when I had kids, I started to literally think, my gosh, if someone ever spoke to my son the way I speak to some of these people, I'd wring their neck, or especially if they ever talk to my daughter that way. And it just changed my perspective. I love people, and I've always loved people. I've always been a good person. I always intended to do well, but I ran everything like it was a locker room.
Right.
All the leaders and mentors in my life had been coaches, and most of them were like old school, dominate, intense, in your face coaches. My dad's that kind of a guy when he was younger. And I just modeled it into the business world. And although business resembles sports, it's not just sports.
Right.
And in what I've also found is some of the great coaches of this time aren't bully coaches. They're not. The Phil Jacksons of the world, he wasn't a bully type coach. Right? Like Andy Reid, who just won a Super Bowl, he's not a bully.
Right.
He pulls the best strengths out of people.
No doubt.
He makes people want to rise to their own standard. And that's hopefully what I've become the last, couple decades in my business career too.
Yeah, I like that, allowing people to rise to their own standards. So once you recognized that about yourself, once you started having those thoughts, I don't want anybody, I wouldn't want my daughter to be treated this way. Yeah. Once you recognize that, how did you break out of it? Like, how do you make that change internally to become, you were having success with the old way.
That was the hard part. You just nailed it. I thought I was winning because I was that way, but I was winning in spite of being that way. That's the hard part. A lot of you guys that have big organizations or ladies too, you're like, but I do that and we're winning. Well, facts are funny things, right? And And the truth is that you could be winning in spite of the fact that you're that way, not because you're that way. I thought, oh man, the reason we dominate is because I'm just this crazy person. And I didn't want to lose my crazy. But here's what I did. And I was at a talk one time, and this guy got up and said that he had struggled with it. And for me, here's what it really was. It was impulse control. It was impulse control. I'd get upset, and I had to let you know in that moment what it was. And he said, you know what a mature leader would do? Mature leader would think, I need this person to change their behavior. What's the best methodology? Is it speaking to them, sitting them down, one-on-one, group, passive-aggressive, written letter? How would I do it? What's the best way to achieve the actions I want them to take? And what you do if you behave this way is you're not a good leader. You're not mature. Your impulse control is terrible, and you just fly off the handle. It's not that you think they need to know this. It's that you don't really want to take the time and invest in doing it correctly. And so when that urge would come up, and it still does sometimes, when that urge comes up, I reflect on my own standard, on my own leadership ability. I believe weak leaders are temperamental. Weak leaders fly off the handle. Weak leaders make people feel unsafe. Great leaders create safety. Some leaders do it by, their ability to scheme, like a Bill Belichick. You feel safe, like we've got the brightest mind. Some of them it's with their character. Some of it's with their inspirational abilities. Some of them it's with building a family type environment. When I was flying off the handle, I was doing the exact opposite of that. I wasn't creating a secure environment. I looked unstable. It made the organizations I were a part of look unstable. And it was a weakness and immaturity in me. Right. Not them. Right. And so it's been a long, long time. And now when I make the mistake of doing it, as quickly as I can, I will ask for forgiveness for it. Even as the leader. I don't care if it's the newest person in our company. I had a lady on my team who's in my social media team. Maybe about 6 months ago, I made this mistake. She really had consistently screwed some things up. Rather than sitting her down when it did, I let it stew and stew and stew. And then I kind of flew off the handle on her. And I immediately saw her face when I did it. And I immediately said, give me 1 minute. I was on a call. I said, come in here. I said, first, I owe you an apology. I don't need to talk to you like that. I love you. I believe in you. My frustration is that you have all these amazing gifts. You're this, and this. And I want to see you living up to that. But you got to decide to set that standard. I just want you to know how much I believe in you, how much I love you. And it's never happened since then. She's very loyal to me. I'm very loyal to her. But to say that I never do it, I never make mistakes, that's not being honest.
Yeah, man. I do. But the fact that you can instantly go and ask for forgiveness and apologize shows that you're way stronger than any bully coach could ever be, because that takes real strength and power to be able to do that. But I love that. It makes sense. And it goes back to, really the thought process behind that, how you were able to make the change. You're looking at the results, just like what you were doing with your doctor, just like, all of the other things. It's like, what is that result? What is that why? Where is it going to get me? And using that to shift, even though it's hard, right? It's like, it's still in you to go off the, to blow up and fire off on everybody. But you just don't do it anymore.
For the most part, what I want to do is not that I don't ever want to push people. I do. But for the most part, I want to be a pull leader. The gravitational pull of our message, our dream, our vision, our values, my enthusiasm level pulls you with me to do something great, as opposed to me pushing you all the time to do things.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That's sort of the distinction I try to make.
Let me ask you this real quick, Ed. You serve on a massive level, right? You're doing shows like mine today. You're doing all these different shows. You're serving people. You've been serving people forever. You came out of the baseball thing and you were working with the boys in the organization. And so you've always had this servant heart. I want to turn it around real quick. Who serves Ed Mylett and who inspires you? You're inspiring all of us. Who's inspiring you?
First off, my Lord does. My comfort and my strength comes from my faith. And again, I'm not preaching. I just would be lying if I said, where do I really get my inspiration from? I get it from God.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm with you there. Amen.
Yeah, it's my comfort, right? Like my wife tells people all the time, I like literally pray on my knees every day. So I don't just pray laying around. I pray on my knees. It's kind of old school, but it's just humbles me and reminds me when I'm in prayer, like, hey, dude, we know who really did all this. Right. Wasn't you?
Right.
So there's that. I got to tell you, and I'm going to be super straightforward. I think you can tell I shoot straight.
Yeah.
I get so much more out of doing this. I've met so many amazing people every single day. If I need inspiration, I just check my direct messages on Instagram, and people will tell me their story or how something's affected them or what they're going through or the difference they've made. I've met all these remarkable people like yourself from these relationships that feed me. Because you know what it does in this space, especially? It's a reminder, man, there's still good people in the world.
Amen.
There's a lot of good people. You turn the TV on, we're all against each other. Blue against red, Democrat against Republican, rich against poor.
Yeah.
One party, your enemy is rich guys and Christians. The other party, it's immigrants and whoever. It's like they're always just getting us at each other. And that's not how most people live. Most people are wonderful and incredible.
That's right.
And then I do have a core group of people, many of which you probably know by name. I belong to a couple clubs that I've been a member at for a long time that are, very, very successful business people that mentor me. And I'm talking about, 20, $30 billion net worth, a couple of these dudes.
Right.
And then I have some faith people that I surround myself with. I have kind of a couple boards of directors. I run an organization called Arate and that's where we coach, real successful
incredible organization.
And that was founded because I've had my own Arate in my personal life since I was 30 with these different people who sculpted me. They run some of the biggest companies or been some of the top athletes that have helped me with my thinking, hold me accountable. And what they really do, to go back, they help me through observation and proximity, to your point earlier, about proximity repetition too.
Yep.
They've helped me change my own personal standard in different areas of my life. And those are the things that inspire me the most, are those three things. Obviously my children and my wife inspire me. To me, that's just innate. Like that's just, that's not different.
Right.
if your family doesn't inspire you, you have some major issues.
Yeah. You've got some problems.
You gotta be able to check that box.
No, man, I love that. And I think that a lot of people probably wouldn't expect that type of a response. I feel it more and more now too. Like it's yes, I'm inspired by, the Ed Myletts and, Grant Cardone was on our show last week, and that's awesome. But it's that message that you get, from somebody that watches my show in the morning and just reaches out and says, man, I'm waking up without the snooze button now. And it's
how good does that feel? Isn't that the best feeling?
Oh, man, it's incredible. They're
Look at your face right now. Look at your face, right? Because that's your home. I think when you light up like that, you're like, maybe I'm in one of my callings here. Right. Everyone says, this is my calling. I've had multiple callings in my life, right? But like, it's got to be your calling when it lights you up like that. And it does for me too. It's like, it's just this sense of home almost. When someone gives me some feedback like you just described there, I'm like, wow. And by the way, it comes from me often at the times when I'm really wondering whether I should be doing what I'm doing.
It's always perfect timing, right?
Isn't it true? Yeah, same for me.
Always. All right, man. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I got a couple more questions and I'll let you go. First thing I wanted to ask, let's go back full circle all the way. Question number one. So you're standing... There we are. Let's say it's let's see, you just turned what, 50, or you're getting ready to turn 50?
I am.
Yeah, getting ready to turn 50. So let's say 60 years from now, right?
Woo.
60 years from now, when the good Lord says it's Ed Mylett's time to head up, and there he is, there's God, there is that version of you that he had planned. Where would you say you are, if you had to gauge it on like a percentage scale? Where would you say? How much do you match up with that guy right now?
Not a lot. Not much. One of the best questions I've ever been asked. Like, you're a great interviewer. You've asked me 2 or 3 things, man. I've never been asked before.
Thank you, man.
Not much. I would say I'm 18% of the way there.
Wow.
The reason I give you that percentage, why it's not 0, and I want everyone to have this gift if you have not yet discovered it in your life. I know what it's like to be looking in the mirror and really not liking what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean like what I look like. I always struggle with that. But I mean, not being proud of me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like looking there and going,
yep.
And I know what it's like from time to time to catch a glimpse in the car when I'm brushing my teeth and going, hey, man, you doing okay?
Sure.
You know what I mean? I know what that's like too.
Yeah.
That gets me real emotional when I just said that. And I touch it once in a while. My feeling is that when I meet that dude someday, that's how it'll feel all the time. So I'd be lying if I said I've never, ever looked and went, hey, you're doing okay, right? I have. So I'd say 18% of the way there, only because whether it's Grant or myself, or whoever you have on, you're always getting, you're usually getting the best version. There's bad versions of me too. There's things I mess up all the time, like daily. So, I'm more hyper aware of the not so good things as everybody else is. The difference is I don't shame myself with it anymore. I used to just beat myself up when I'd make mistakes or fail, or so many people carry these bags around their whole life. I messed that up. I had that divorce. I had that bankruptcy. I had this mistake. I made this bad decision. And they keep carrying these bags, and they get heavier and heavier and heavier in their life. I've dropped those bags, man. And so that gives me a chance to be more free. We use these weapons. People, you get people messaging it. You have it too. That are suicidal or something like that. Yeah. There's also millions of other people who are killing themselves every day with shame. They're not going to take their life, but they're taking their life up with worry and fear, and anxiety and insecurity. And they're taking their whole life up with it. They carry these bags around their life, and they use these weapons against themselves, which they'd never do to somebody else. And I just figured, you know what? I'm pretty forgiving with other people in my life. Maybe I ought to give myself a break once in a while.
Yes, sir.
And so I'd say 18% because I screw it up most of the time, but I don't screw it up all the time.
Right.
I don't screw it up all the time.
That's strong, man. That is really, really strong. And I completely resonate, with exactly what you're talking about. I reached a point in my life where I was homeless for a little while in San Diego, California. I was hopeless. I felt invisible. I felt like I had, and this was before I had any, spiritual understanding and so on and so forth. So I just felt like I had no purpose. And I did go out and try to kill myself. I tried to, I tried to commit suicide at one point. And so I know what you're talking about when you look in the mirror and it's just like, golly, this person is awful, right? Like it's just awful. And luckily God, literally plucked me out of the ocean, dropped me on the beach, said, bro, you're not getting out easy. I got plans for you. And luckily now, now I can walk.
Look at you now.
Man, it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
Amazing though? It's funny. It's like, and I know you. Then you're like, yeah, it's not that good. You always go back to it, and people go, man, look what you're doing. You're like, well, if you really knew, it's really not that good. Right. And it is. It's remarkable. I do it all the time. Like, can you believe it? I'm like, come on, it's not. You know what, man? It's awesome what you've done. Thank God you didn't do that. Thank God, that you were redeemed and you're doing great things because you're making a difference in the world. And, even us doing this today, the way it ended up happening where I agreed to do it is because you sowed such good seeds into other people. That, you had a dear friend who's a dear friend of mine walk across the room and go, hey, this is a good man. He does good things. You'll like each other. Now I love him, right? So it's like, God, you do reap what you sow. There's a great parable in the Bible. And by the way, those of you that are like, hey, I'm a new age, I believe in the quantum field. So do I. I believe in vibration. I believe in energy. Yeah. I know about that. I plug into it all the time. I vibrate at a very high frequency. I think you can also believe in a God that created the universe and believe there's an energy field. I believe in both.
Yes, sir. I'm right there with you, man. I'm 100% with you.
You think I'm crazy? My whole life is a testimony to vibration and attraction and all these other things.
That's right.
Having said that, though, the truth of the matter is that there's a great parable in the Bible called the parable of the sower. And it basically, I'm paraphrasing and I butcher this stuff all the time, but basically you're going to plant seeds in your life. Not all of them are going to reap a harvest.
Sure.
Birds are going to get some, the weather, the rain, the wind, not everything's going to get a harvest, but there's sort of a contract in the world with the universe or God, whatever you believe, that if you keep planting seeds, there's eventually some type of harvest for it. And what you're a testimony of, me being here today, the work you're doing is certain seeds you planted in other people. and I have as well, that led you and I today to have this harvest together. It's awesome.
That is incredible, man. Just keep planting the seeds. I love it. We're going to do two things. I'm going to let you out of here. First, where do if somebody wants to follow Ed Mylett, where do you prefer they hang out?
I'll probably go to Instagram. It's EDMYLETT. I go to Instagram. I have a YouTube channel and obviously podcast on audio, but if you go to Instagram, you'll probably figure it all out from there.
Okay, great. That's the best place. Perfect. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to put you up on top of a mountain real quick. All right. Ed Mylett, you are up on top of a mountain, and literally all of civilization is down at the bottom of the mountain, and they're going, Mylett, 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 Mylett. They're cheering for you. And you have 2 minutes with a microphone to drop something on them, some practical application, some wisdom, something they can take away and apply in their life today, this week, this month, this year. What are you going to tell them?
I would tell them, number one, there's a God in heaven who loves you, who made you, and you can live forever. And you should feel comfort in that. That's the first thing I would tell you. Beautiful. Second thing is that your life's never going to exceed your personal identity. Your personal identity is that thermostat sitting right there on the wall, right there. It governs the temperature in this room. This is the most important thing you'll ever hear. The most powerful force in the human spirit is to be consistent with the thoughts, concepts, and beliefs you hold true to be about yourself, otherwise known as your identity. And it's like a thermostat right there. See, that thing's set at 70.
Right.
If I open up this door and a bunch of hot air comes in, the external conditions are hot, that thermostat will regulate this room at 70 degrees. It's what we're going to get. If it opened the door and it was cold, 50 degrees, the heater will kick on and make this room 70 degrees.
Right.
In your life, no matter what the external conditions are, that thermostat setting, your identity is going to govern the internal temperature of your life. Okay? Not the external things that happen. And if you don't change that identity, you could start to heat your life up to 75, 80, 90, 95 degrees of abundance, health, wellness, happiness, bliss, whatever it is. And if you don't change that identity, you will unconsciously cool it back down to what you believe you deserve. You at best work on your identity, your worth, all the thoughts and concepts, beliefs you hold to be true about you, because it's the governor on the thermostat temperature of your life. And you've all had it happen where you get it going and you cool it back down. And it seems coincidental. Oh, my car broke down. This deal flaked out. The guy had to go to the doctor. It's not coincidental.
That's right. It's
your identity regulating the temperature of your life. And if you don't fix that, you can have all the sales skills, motivational skills, everything in the world. That regulator's kicking on at some point. So what I work on is being grateful for my faith, my two overriding things. Grateful for my faith. I get comfort in that. And I got to work all the time on that thermostat setting of what I'm worth. And that's shaped by your peer group more than anything.
Right.
That peer group who you listen to. And to your point, the greater the proximity, the greater the influence they have on you. The greater the repetition and proximity, the greater influence they have on you. That's so right. Those would be the two things I would tell those people. And then I would say, stop yelling for me and yell for you.
I love it. That is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And you touched on that earlier, moving that identity. It's about getting around the circle, the people that are going to push you, encourage you, educate you, shape you, mold you, inform you. And clearly you, sir, Mr. Ed Mylett, you are this amazing child of God, right? Uniquely made by the God of the universe to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. And I know you're on your way, man. And I appreciate you so much because your decision to be here on this show, #Rise and Grind today, it's made an impact, man. It's made an impact on my life. It's made an impact on these other people's lives. And that's what it's all about, man. I absolutely love you for it. Thank you so much for being
grateful, my brother.
Rise and Grind.
Grateful. You got a new friend in me here. So thank you so much.
Awesome, man. I totally appreciate you. I'm going to let you go. Thanks, Ed. I'll be in touch. I'm going to hop back out and say goodbye to everybody else. I really do appreciate you, sir.
Max out.
All right, man. Take care. Yo, 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 yo. That was my man, Mr. Ed Mylett. What an incredible hour we just got with an incredibly passionate, just amazing human being. If you haven't done so already, make sure you share this out. It's absolutely the best thing that we can possibly do whenever we have a guest on our show is to go ahead and share this out to the rest of the world. Man, that guy is something special. And I hope you take to heart everything that he said because the dude was on point.